Many artists feel that they need long, quiet stretches of time to improve on their drawing skills and find their style. But I've actually found the exact opposite to be true. This summer, I filled up 50 pages of this little sketchbook with little scribbles and doodles documenting small moments in my life. And along the way, I made some huge discoveries. In this video, I'm going to share with you every single page in this sketchbook, from the little experiments to the pages that genuinely surprised and delighted me. And along the way, I'll be sharing some stories, insights, and I'll demonstrate how much progress you can make just by showing up consistently for small periods of time. All right, opening up to the very first page. This is not my favorite sketch, and that's totally fine. You don't have to start every single sketchbook with a work of art, and sometimes that's the biggest thing that holds us back. I ended up redoing that same piece, and I talk about that process in another video along with the materials that I use for these first few sketches. So I'm not going to spend too long on the first 10 or so. I'll just whip through them really quick. And if you are interested in learning more about that, you can check out that other video, which will be linked in the video description. For most of these, including the newer material too, it's a watercolor base and then some marker or fine liner or colored pencil details. So this is one that I did from life, and I love working from life. It keeps me really loose and quick and spontaneous, but I didn't have very many opportunities to just sit down and draw on location this summer. And so I decided to work from photographs for the rest of the book. These are all going to be photographs that I took this summer that document special parts of the summer. So here is where I started a trip to Yellowstone, and that's really like the meat of the rest of this sketchbook because I had so many photographs from this vacation, and I did them all in my studio. I started with watercolor bases, and when I say watercolor, I'm just talking about a water-soluble paint. I used a combination of Inktense paints and Graphitint paints and like a pastel paint, and those are, I'll link all of those down in the notes below and kind of talk about them throughout the process. We did see a bear in the stream in Yellowstone. We were surprisingly close to it. It was really, really exciting. This is the Grand Prismatic Springs, and if you're familiar with Yellowstone, there are so many cool opportunities to play with color because there's so many unexpected colors in the landscape. These are some hot pots or mud pots, and these aren't the exact colors that I saw, but something that is just like kind of a gray mud was a really, really fun opportunity to play with different colors and to really explore mark making. And I did that throughout the book. If I talk about this in the other video, but these cave paintings, like these are inspired from things that I saw inside a cave, but I'm definitely like pushing and playing with the color and having a fun place to just jump off as a starting point, but then be able to explore is a really cool way to push your creativity. I've got some clouds, and those are always fun to play with. It can be a quick sketch. Most all of the sketches in here are like 20 minutes or less. Here are some of those hot springs pouring into the sand, and you can't exactly tell what's going on, but it's a very cool, interesting composition, and that's ultimately the goal with what I was going for here. Here's one of those hot pots, and it was fun to play around with different ways that I could create that smoke. You'll notice here my trees are very blotchy, very quick. Clouds also. When you're loosening up, it doesn't have to be perfect every time, right? You can just jump in and try out some different marks, and sometimes doing that all over the entire piece makes it all work together in the end. Also, using a quick watercolor base like this and then coming in with some colored pencils to refine can be a great way to loosen up, but then to like regain control. Here's one of my kids looking for animals with the little binoculars we brought to Yellowstone. And when I started documenting this trip, I realized how amazing it was to really memorialize the trip and to make it special outside of like the amazing opportunity it was to go on this trip. Here we've got one of the bison, and you'll notice all the different colors in the grass. Because I am painting this landscape so many times, I have the opportunity to really play and explore all of these different color combinations, and I ended up finding combinations that I really enjoyed, like this kind of turquoise color and the lavender in the green. I felt like it gave it a lot of life and energy. This was a really, really fun sketch because I started thinking that, you know, at this point, every single sketch was taking up one page, and I was going to do a zoom in on the bison, but the bison kept getting bigger, and it felt like some important parts were going to be eliminated. And I was like, let's just go for the whole page. And I was so excited with how this turned out. I've got this really strong, interesting composition, which was something I never would have come up with on my own. I've never grabbed paper in these dimensions. And another, you know, big pitch for sketchbooks being this playground, this experimental place to explore. This page was a huge breakthrough for me. But the truth is that every time you sit down to work in your sketchbook, you have the opportunity for a breakthrough as you play and explore. If you are interested in starting or possibly restarting your own sketchbook habit, I have the perfect resource for you. It's called Sketch 7, and it's a 7-day sketchbook challenge that you can complete in as little as 15 minutes a day. It's specifically designed to help you develop consistency, improve your drawing skills, and to fight perfectionism. If you're interested in learning more, I'll drop a link down in the video description and you can check it out after the tour. A sketchbook that makes this possible by having the opportunity for spreads, you know, like instead of a wire or a spiral binding, I've got this open binding that allows me to just like fold a page over and extend it. And I ended up doing this several times, but throughout the rest of my sketchbook. But this was the first time I did it, so it was kind of special. And another thing that I was really excited about with this sketch is bringing in some of the different colors into the browns and blacks in the bison. This blue helped me cool down the brown, and it still reads as a brown bison from afar, but I have all of this color and energy. And you'll notice sometimes it's just really scribbly. Like this was a quick sketch. Again, even though it took up the 2 pages, maybe it was 20-25 minutes. And so I don't have time for tons of individual strands of hair. Instead, I've got to get the impression down and move on relatively quickly. If you haven't been to Yellowstone before, the bison are a huge part of the experience, and they walk right through the roads and slow down traffic, and that is just part of the experience. And so I definitely wanted to document that. And after that full spread that I was so pleased with of the full buffalo, I decided I needed to do a horizontal full spread. And this one was also really, really fun. It's hard for me to sometimes let go of details, but I think that these cars in the road look better for letting go of the details and having that time limit. Like I can only spend 15, 20, maybe 25 minutes if I've got a full spread. So I'm moving quickly and I'm making decisions quick. And if it doesn't go perfectly, I have the next page to work it out. More sketches from Yellowstone. I've got, these are called the Mammoth Hot Springs. And here it was more about capturing the color combinations and the shapes than anything else. I was really excited by the energy in this sketch. And I think this one was like 10 minutes. And while I was there, there was this little bird jumping through what was supposedly very, very hot, hot spring water, like boiling, injury-inducing temperatures. There were signs everywhere, and there was this little bird just hopping through, and I was so interested in why this bird could hop through these hot springs and not be bothered by it at all. And these are color combinations that I kind of had started working out earlier in the sketchbook. If I just kind of peel back, remember I was talking about like those greens and lavenders working together, and that's definitely popping up here again. This ended up becoming kind of a triadic color scheme with the secondary colors, orange, green, and violet. And I was really pleased with just how the colors and the energy in this piece work together, and kind of how they work together with both sketches. These were both photographs that were taken in the same place. This one here is the last one from Yellowstone, with some of that hot spring water that had killed some of the trees. And this in this area, I started playing around with a new color palette, transitioning to some different tones. So up in my Yellowstone palette, I was using my Derwent Line and Wash set. And this is a combination of Inktense and Graphy Tint and all kinds of different water-soluble colors that are, there's definitely like a color story happening here. And I was also using some pastel shades just when I needed it. So when I needed like these lavenders and some of the lighter greens, I was pulling them from this pastel shade. But at this point, when I transitioned from Yellowstone, and this was like a big trip that we went on this summer, we went to Glacier National Park next, and there's definitely a different color scheme, a different color story happening in this landscape. We're up further north in Montana now. And so I changed out this line and wash set that felt very Yellowstone and very hot spring. And I pulled out this Inktense 24. So these are going to be all Inktense colors. They're brighter, they're bolder, and I thought that that would give me a little bit more opportunity to explore color in a different way. And it helps one part of the trip feel different than the rest. And so that was kind of my transition that was happening here. I still had a fairly similar experience with my materials. So I started with the light watercolor base. I built up colored pencil details, and I tried to keep it loose and quick throughout the entire time. So this sketch is a top-down view of rocks in a stream, and I've definitely pushed and exaggerated the colors quite a bit. I also needed that reflective quality of the water, and white colored pencils on top of the paint are not going to be that intense. Like you can see some of these are maybe not white, but they're lighter colors, and it's more muted, it's more subdued. So to get these really bold whites, I used the Copica Crea acrylic marker in Snow White, and any kind of white paint marker or maybe even a gel pen could work. That's a great tool to add into a quick sketch set. So you're not trying to reserve whites of your paper, because that can be time consuming, and you're not fighting your colored pencils. If, for example, I brought my colored pencil in and I left a mark, you'll see it just doesn't have the same impact that that white does. And that helped it feel more reflective. It doesn't need to look exactly like rocks in a river. It was more about the experience and the play and the fun, and I really enjoyed that piece. So these sketches were done at a ski resort in Montana. Then we went to Glacier National Park. We spent a day there. We saw just about every animal you can imagine. And that was a big focus of the sketches that I did to document this part of the trip. This piece was a moth asleep on a flower, and I wanted to explore that in focus in the foreground, out of focus in the background. But as I was working on it, doing that was going to require a lot of detail in this very little fussy flower. So I prioritized the need to keep these quick, to keep them experimental. Filling up a sketchbook with 50 or 60 pages is incredibly time consuming. And one of the reasons that I put this challenge together was to create artwork when I'm really busy. So there definitely were opportunities where I had to prioritize what was most important. And for this challenge, it was keeping it quick. So I didn't put as much detail in this flower. And I think that that impacted how effective this flower coming forward and the background moving back could be. Like, I don't think I nailed this one, but that's okay. That's not what a sketchbook is for. You don't need every sketch perfect. You are putting a lot in and putting your reps in so that you get a few surprises and you get to learn so much along the way. I've got a little painting of huckleberries. I wanted to play with like leaving some white background, and I didn't end up doing this much more because it wasn't one of my favorite. I was so into color here. So I, again, did the experiment and moved on and learned from it. I think this landscape was called Hidden Lake, and I, again, wanted to play with the stretched compositions. This one was really fun. I liked that moodiness. It was starting to get cloudy and rainy, and so I really leaned into the color palette to help me with that and achieve that look. While I was on this hike to this hidden lake, we saw some really, really fun animals. This is one of my favorite pages in the spread. We saw this marmot, and this might look small in the, but these animals are like a large cat size, maybe even larger than that. And they were running all over in these wildflowers, and I just thought it was such a cute, colorful moment. And so I leaned into this color palette of the greens, the pinks, and the purples, and used that for both. We also got to see a mountain goat family. There was a baby mountain goat, although I didn't get the best picture, but this was one of my favorite ones. And notice where I am in the sketchbook, right? I've got so many pages that I've painted before I got to my favorite page in this book. And that is really part of the process with sketchbooks. You are making so much, and it doesn't all have to be perfect, but along the way you learn so much. And I discovered things that I liked about color schemes and things I liked about mark making and working with these materials so that it was possible to make these relatively quickly. This was another really special sketch. We've got this mother ground squirrel with two little babies, and I was waiting outside the hole because I was seeing them pop in and out so that I could get this picture. And it was so fun to paint it afterwards because there were so many memories associated with getting this photograph and watching this mother ground squirrel with her two babies while I was there with my kids and my family. And as I was documenting this, I started mentioning this earlier in the sketchbook tour, but as I was documenting my trip, I have never done this before. I've never gone through all my trip photographs and documented them in a sketchbook. And I can't believe I never did this. This was one of my very favorite art exercises. I've created this keepsake that my kids love, that my husband loves, that we can use to remember the trip. After Glacier, we went to a friend's ranch, and both of my boys got to ride a horse, but this child was particularly excited about riding a horse and being on a ranch. We're a city family, and so they haven't had those opportunities before. It's always intimidating to do a quick sketch of somebody that you know. I'm right there with you. I was very nervous about the face, but one thing that really helped is keeping it very simple. For this one, I definitely sketched first with some colored pencil, then painted, then came over with more colored pencil. I stuck to my shadow shapes, and shadow shape design is something that I talk about in my Simplifying Shadows sketchbook insert. If that's something that you'd like to learn more about, there is a free download in the video description, along with more information about Sketch 7. This is my other son and some of his experiences at the ranch, playing with the horses. This is a little chicken here. And I think that my advice, if you are playing around with sketching figures quickly, or maybe animals, and if that feels really intimidating because you're like, oh, the proportions aren't going to be right, I don't have enough time to get the measurements, do a sketch where maybe it's zoomed out or you're not looking at the face. Like, I still know this is my son because of the way that he's interacting with this horse. This is a very sweet, sensitive child, specifically with animals. And this little silhouette of the other child zoomed out, like, I know this is my other son because of the long hair, but I can keep it loose and quick and even just focus on the basic shapes, maybe some quick outlines. And I think that that can be a very approachable way to painting or drawing figures if you wanted to do a vacation as well, or if you wanted to paint or draw the people in your life. I think start loose, start a little bit less high risk, so don't have a face included in it. And if it isn't perfect, like this one is not perfect, don't beat yourself up about it. It's just a page in a sketchbook, and there's always another one. On this ranch, this family had turkeys that were incredibly friendly. Like, I've never seen this before. The turkeys would follow you around the ranch, and they would ask for treats, and they wanted to be pet. It was bananas. So of course I had to do another spread in the sketchbook with the male turkey. Now the tom turkey was not as friendly as the females, but he's got all these colors, so I had to showcase him. And I do want to draw your attention back to how many times did I repeat this thing that worked, right? Okay, there's another time. Where's my buffalo? There's another one. So I found something I was excited by. It went well, but I didn't just do it once. Anytime I had the opportunity to do it again, to play with this really exaggerated composition, I did it. And I played with it with different ways, different color combinations. In this one, I brought in some of the mark making that I had explored in other pieces. This is that white marker that helped me pull the highlights and the texture back out. Last couple pages here, I just was sketching the chicken, and this is one of the female turkeys that was so friendly. I played with that white background again, just to kind of see what would happen. And again, it's not my favorite, but I tried something that didn't work to see if there was a way that I could make it work. You're exploring and experimenting with the things that worked and the things that didn't work. Like, this is all experiments, and you got to go both ways. I skipped through this one really quick, but I did want to mention that my goal for this one was just to use paint, no colored pencil, no marker, and I was pretty pleased with how that turned out. I think what really held this one together are the shadows. And again, that is something that I practice a lot in my work and that I teach a lot, that shadow shape design. So this is the last one that I completed for this sketchbook. One more of the female turkeys. I looked for pictures that I could put on this other side. And at this point, I had just documented so much of this trip. This was like a 10-day trip that I documented over the course of at least 30 pages. And I had hit all of the important moments. There wasn't anything else that I wanted to include. And although this sketchbook had started out as a summer challenge, it had evolved into documenting special moments in my summer. And I had done these all after the fact, and summer was over, and I felt like this sketchbook challenge was over. So I left the last couple pages blank. I can, journal about the trip at a later time, or let my kids add in something, since this has now become a family keepsake. Now that I've had my turn to share, I want to hear from you. Tell me about your experience with sketchbooks. What questions do you have, and what are you excited to try in your sketchbook next? Leave me a comment, and if you need a little bit more sketchbook inspiration, you can check out this video where I document my experience drawing 100 heads in 10 days. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.